Hey everybody, what's up? It's Dave. Just finishing up the front wheel on my TL125. The last thing I needed to do was install the tire. Brand new tube, get the bead locker in place without pinching any tubes or anything, and it came out beautiful. So let me show you how that went. Alright, so here's everything required to assemble this whole front wheel. Obviously I've got the rim, I've got a brand new tire, I've got a brand new tube, I've got 3 tire irons, I've got a valve stem removal tool, I've got a bead buddy to help me out, to be like a third hand, and also have the rim lock that comes inside the rim, as well as some soapy water just to lubricate the tire so it slides on and off the rim a little easier without gripping it and fighting it. So that's all I need, and let's get started. Okay, step number 1 is to determine whether the tire you have is directional or not. And on this actual tire there is an arrow. It says rotation with an arrow going in this direction. So that's the direction we want the tire to be turning when we're going forward, which would put this sidewall on the left side of the bike. So we want to make sure that we mount this thing properly. The last thing you want to do is get through all of this without pinching any tubes or anything, and then you go put it on the bike and the arrow is pointing in the wrong direction. So this sidewall is on the left side of the bike. The wheel has the brake on the left side of the bike. So here's the center hub with the brake, which is the left side, and here's the tire, will be on the left side, rotating in this direction. So let's make sure we figure that out first. Not all tires are directional. The back tire was not. The front tire is. So just look, it'll be clearly marked. And determine that first thing. Okay, this rim has 2 holes in it. One is for the valve stem, and the other is for a bead locker to pinch the tire against the rim to stop it from spinning independently. And let me show you how these work. If you look here, this could either be the valve stem or the bead locker. I'm just going to select this as the bead locker, and this would go inside the tire before it's fully mounted and seated on the beads. This will just kind of be floating around in there. Once the tire is installed on the rim, it's up on these shoulders here, the bead of the tire, and it's in place. Then you would come back and sock a nut down, which would crank this down like that. And what happens here is the tire now, which is here and here, is going to be pinched in between this surface and the rim. So it's going to pinch it in place. So now the tire is kind of locked onto this rim. They also have these little bits of teeth that kind of stop the tire from rotating. And the last thing you want to do is hit the brakes really hard and have the tire grip the road, and then the wheels spin on it. So this just kind of locks it in place, and that's how that works. Alright, here's a look at the inside of the tube. I found another use for duct tape. I just ran a strip of it all around the inside of the rim just to protect the tube from rubbing back and forth against these nipples and maybe puncturing them at some point. So, there should be like a rubber band in here, but I didn't have one, so I just used duct tape. Cut a little opening for the valve stem and the bead locker at the same time. Okay, so now I'm set. I know the direction of the tire, what side this sidewall has to be on. I've got the rim oriented, left side of the rim, left side of the tire. And now it's time to install this. And I'm sure there's more than one way of doing it. This is the way I'm going to do it. It may or may not be the greatest, but I don't think it's going to be all that difficult. So first thing I'm going to start out with is some soapy water. Just got some Dawn detergent with some water, and we're just going to lubricate this bead so that the rubber doesn't grip the rim and more slides on the rim. So here we go. I'm going to see if I can put one bead in the rim first. And let's just see if we can get this in by hand. And we can. Perfect. Alright, so that's one bead in the rim. I'm going to flip it over. And now we've got to get the tube inside there will be my next step. Actually, I think the next step is to get the bead locker inside there, because again, the tube's going to go around the outside of this bead locker. This bead locker is going to be in between the tube and the rim. So let's get this in place. Just pick a hole, one of the two. We'll sneak this in here. And it's got a lock washer and a nut. And I don't want to tighten this down now because then the tire wouldn't be able to get inside in between it. So just have this inside there kind of floating around loosely. So that's the rim locker, the bead locker. And now the next thing is to put the tube in. Tube comes with the cap, comes with two locking nuts. I'm going to leave one on the rim, or one on the valve stem. Take one off. I'm going to remove this valve stem just to allow some air to get inside this tire and maybe make it easier to work with. So I'm just going to lay it like this. I've got my valve stem over here. See if I can sneak this in here. Trying to do it on this side so you can see. Alright, there's the valve stem. I'm going to put a locking nut on it so that it can't come out. Now I'm just going to feed the rest of this tube inside. Okay, so part of me thinks I should put some air in this tube just to get it fit in here nicely, so why don't I do that? Alright, let me put a little bit of air pressure in this hose, in this tube, to get any kind of wrinkles that might be in it. Of course, it doesn't have a valve stem. So while it's got some pressure in it, I'm just going to feel around. Okay, I don't feel any wrinkles in it or anything. I think it's in good shape. So I'll let the air pressure out of it. I want to keep it away from the rim as best I can, so that when I come in here with the irons, I'm not pinching the tube because it's away from the rim, hopefully. Let me squeeze some air out of it. Okay. Alright, so the tube is in here. It's relaxed for the most part. My bead locker is in here. It's free. Now I'm going to start putting this side bead on. And when you're trying to tuck the last couple inches of this tire over the rim, the opposite side of the tire, this bead needs to drop down inside the rim and rest in this little well in here, or trough, whatever you might call it. So it can't fit in the trough where the bead lock is. So I kind of want to make sure that the bead locker is on the opposite side of the last No. I want to make sure the bead locker is close to the last couple inches so that across from it I can drop it into the well. So I am going to start this thing just to the right of the bead locker. Start by spraying it down with some soapy water. So I'm going to start it. Here's where I'm going to put my bead buddy in place to be kind of my third hand. And now I'm going to try to get this thing going. This bead locker is part of the issue. I don't know if I'm doing this the best way, but okay. Alright, I'm getting it started now. And go as far as I can by hand here, and then I'll have to get the spoons out. So now this is going to be the last part of the rim that goes over, and in order to get the room I need to drop this side of the tire into the well so it goes in and moves over and gives me some room. And again, this is where you need to be careful with the spoons. Another thing to be careful when you're using these spoons, you just kind of want to go perpendicular. You don't want to bend it all the way down, because the tip, if you bend it all the way down, the tip is going to come up against the rim and maybe pinch the tube. So if all you do is take it this far, the tip isn't really pinching the inside of the tube and the rim. If that makes any sense. I'm going to leave one in here because they get harder to reach in on the last couple of just the lip of the rim, and only to the upright position like this. And now I've got this last piece, and I want to make sure that the bead here is down in the middle of the rim, which will give me enough space. And this is where you got to be careful that you're not getting the tube. And there it is. So hopefully I didn't pinch the tube in any of that. And let's find out. Yep. I think we're good as far as... Well, I forgot I don't have my valve in here. Let's put the valve back in. put 20 psi in it for right now to try to make sure the bead is set all the way around. Here, let me show you what I see here, which leads me to believe I'm not quite done yet. Okay, so here we are. I'm going to go around the wheel. I see this little bead on the tire, and it's got a nice little gap along the rim. But then when I get over here, see, it disappears. It goes inside the rim. It's inside the rim. And then it comes back out right around here. So I don't think this bead is seated quite properly yet, so I'm going to take all the air out and move things around a bit and repressurize it until I get this nice little seam all the way around both sides of the tire. This side of the tire looks good. It's pretty consistent all the way around. So this side looks like the seat is fine. So I just have to work on this side of the wheel. So we're not done yet. Alright, so I'm going to take all the air out of it again, and we'll just reseat the beads a little bit. Spray some soapy water in there so it slides easily. I'm going to put some more water in this thing. Alright, let's try this again. Yep. We'll put about 6 or 7 pounds in it and see if we can't it's like right in this area here. It's tucked in too far. We'll take the bead off of both sides. See a little bead? It goes inside the rim here and comes out of the rim here. And I'm not sure why yet, so I'm going to continue working on it. No, it still dips in right here, and there's nothing here to cause that. It's like the bead of the tire here is not getting up onto the bead surface. It's staying inside the trough. Alright, so I did a series of deflating, pulling the tire back off of the bead, lubricating with a bunch of spray, soapy water, inflating it, having it pop back on the bead, until finally I've got this little indicator bead on the tire. Got a good consistent distance from the rim all the way around. So now I know the bead of the tire is on the bead of the rim on both sides. At one point I had this little indicator bead dipping below the rim, meaning the actual bead of the tire wasn't up on the bead of the rim. And so now on both sides of the tire we've got a consistent indicator all the way around. So now I know that the tire is installed properly on the rim. Alright, so I'm looking around on the tire. It doesn't have an inflation spec on it anywhere. So I am just going to, well, I got to put the stem back in. When we put the stem back in, I'll inflate it to about 25 psi and just make sure it holds air. And then I'll look it up and drop it down, you know, maybe, I don't know, 15 psi, 12 psi might be normal. I don't know off the top of my head. So I'm going to put 20 pounds in it. And then we'll check it, you know, tonight or tomorrow. Alright, I'm going to give it a final rinse. Let's clean it up. Okay, got it all nice and clean. Looks awesome. Last thing I want to do is tighten down this bead locker. Remember, this thing is just kind of floating around in there. Now we've got the tire that's in between the bead locker and the rim. And now I'm going to sock this nut down, which will now pinch the tire against the rim and stop it from sliding around on the rim. So we're going to tighten this down. We don't have to go nuts. Just by feel. I mean, I'm sure if I crank this thing hard enough, it would just pull the bolt out of the bead locker and it'll be floating around in there. So that's good enough. It's got a lock washer on it. It's pinching the tire now between the rim. So let's take a close look at this thing now that it's done. Okay, here we are, our 50-year-old wheel assembly for our 73 Honda TL125. Remember, I painted the rim. This is the side of the rim that we used the tire irons on, and I was very careful with it. And we have no scratches anywhere on the rim. We've got this right here that may have been with the bead buddy, perhaps, or tire iron, but that's the only thing I see as far as blemishes. Those were all pre-paint, and everything looks good. The tire looks good, the spokes and nipples all look awesome, the hub looks great. There's the tire, looks fantastic. It's going on the bike soon. Starting to get to the fun part. Alright, and so there we have it, the whole front wheel. From lacing it, to truing it, to installing the tire and tube on it. Everything came out fantastic, looks great. That was fun, hope you enjoyed that. I got other videos coming up on the assembly of the bike. If you're interested, please consider subscribing to the channel. And until next time, thanks for watching.